Welcome everybody to the Client Success Customer Support Brain Trust. This is November 2024, and many of you have finished your budgets, advocating for budgets next year. Maybe some of you are in the middle of doing that. Today we had a wonderful Brain Trust meeting. Lisa Montin gave a great presentation on how do you craft an airtight business case for additional resources. So we've got this excellent panel with us. We broke up into different size groups. People that are working in companies less than 200 employees, people that are working between 200 and 1,000 and 1,000 plus. So we've got some great panelists here with us that are going to give some thoughts after Lisa gives a quick overview of what she covered as our highlighted lightning speaker here today at the Brain Trust. So Lisa, could you talk a little bit about some of the main principles that you covered?
Sure. So I talked about some tools that can be used to make it more likely to advocate for a business case and successfully get it approved. I talked about one, business outcomes and metrics, linking your business case to business outcomes and metrics. I talked about two, linking it to strategic priorities. And three, I talked about understanding who's the decision maker, getting the right buy-in, and choosing the right time and approach based on the current context of who that person is and what their decision criteria might be.
Excellent, Lisa. And based off what you shared, you dove into some examples. You also shared a bunch of really great use cases that stimulated a wonderful conversation. We broke into breakout rooms and we chatted about common objections that we see at our different size companies. So to kind of kick off our conversation, I'd like to pass the mic over to Mike Pring to share some common objections he comes across and how he handles those. And from there, I'd like to invite any other panelists to comment after him.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think a common objective that we encountered for a couple of years was when you have a large department of people, we had over 500 people, and you say, I need incremental resource, the question always is, well, why can't you just absorb that with all the resources you already have, right? You already have a large group, why can't you do that? So I think the approach to that was a number of things. One is we tied it to a company initiative, which was building customer success. We had customer support. We were building customer success. Everyone was on board with that idea. So it's based around building a customer success function, but then you really have to tie it to a key metric, and we tied it to net revenue retention. So we could actually show if we could improve net revenue retention by 1 or 2 percentage points, is X million. Then you can make the case for this is the cost, this is the revenue. And I think that came over pretty well. But I think the other lesson from that is if you wait to do that at the end of the year when you do the budget cycle, it's maybe too late. So we took the opportunity every month to sit down with the executive team, show them the metrics, form the narrative, get it in their head. This is kind of where we're at. This is how many people, this is our efficiency. So they already have a common understanding about, okay, you're already doing all this and this, and you probably don't have enough people. Because I think if you hit people code with that, it's pretty hard. So I think what I would say is, have a strong metric, but also have continuity and have that narrative ongoing so that people have something they can relate to. And generally that worked. At least we got part of what we asked for, maybe not all of it, but I think it was a fairly successful formula.
That's a great example, Mike, and I couldn't agree more. Tying to metric, but sometimes like a net revenue metric or a revenue metric or money, right? That's a hard number. But sometimes what I see is, there's a lot of things that companies should do because of the experience. So it might make the experience better. And what I see a lot of the challenges with executives is, well, I need real numbers. I can't go by your gut or a survey response or something of that nature. And that often becomes a challenge because everybody knows it's the right thing to do to create a better experience. But how do you quantify that? Because that's that debate of, how do you quantify it or qualify it, right? And qualitative is usually that survey result. Well, one of the things we were able to do, and an example that we've shown is when you do look at experiences and you see a certain trend of a survey or two, or even if it's few, but it's a very impactful, what we do is we leverage then connecting that data then to the call transcripts and then using text analytics and that kind of experience to say, well, this survey predicts is shown when this conversation is happening. So yeah, that's a small volume of surveys, but when you look at the rest of the calls, you can quantify how many other conversations are going on similar to what resulted in that survey. Now, instead of the executive looking at, well, that's just one person's bad experience, they can see that in a quantity way of saying, wow, when you translate that to the call itself, and then look at all the other calls that are similar using tools like text analytics and the like, it creates that interest to say, oh, wow, it's more than just one person who had a bad experience. Look at how many people have. So really being able to show that to the executives is key.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that went on behind the scenes in this process, because you had all the different departments all submitting this at the same time, you had the CFO collecting information. What they would do is they take maybe 30 business cases, add up the revenue, add up the cost, rank them, and then say, okay, this is how much revenue does that match what we need for the year in terms of growth. This is the cost. Well, that's probably twice what we can afford, so we need to pare it down. So what you'd end up with was maybe they'd hold you to the revenue number and give you half the budget you'd asked for. I mean, that's how the real world works. But I think in reality, you probably get some part of what you're looking for. So it's sort of an incremental. Next year, try again, so you can get a little bit more.
Yeah, I can jump in. What I would add, and I saw this in the discussion before as well, is that you don't always need actual metrics yet. I mean, you need something to base it off of, but you need sort of a current state. And what you can do is have assumptions for how what you're going to do is going to impact those metrics. And then you have some sort of pilot period where, okay, instead of the 500K investment, let's actually just start off with a 100K and do a pilot to validate if my assumptions are correct. And then if I do that, then I have some data.
Yeah, I think that's often a good approach, because I think people often go in asking for a lot, and also potentially asking for a lot, but also promising a lot. And sometimes that may be a stretch. So I think sometimes if you get half of what you asked for, and hopefully the expectation is you're only going to achieve half of what you said, then maybe you're in a better position in reality to actually prove the point. Because I think if you can demonstrate success, then it's a lot easier to go back afterwards and ask for more. If you're starting with something that's completely new, I think it's a little bit difficult. So I think it's a good point. That's I think a fair approach to take.
Anthony, over to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, no, I mean, just kind of going back off both Lisa and Mike said, just the timing of everything, and I think that was one of the bigger sticky notes here is just, I think that's something that's been really helpful for us is in understanding the business, understanding the products, and understanding our leadership to a point where we present things in a way that we believe we'll be able to execute and we'll be able to get those resources. And I think just consistently like stacking preparation and communication with that execution, like Mike said, once you do execute on those things and you have some results that you can bring back, it only gets easier. But I really believe strongly in just the timing of everything and picking and choosing the right battles for those business requests, because each one is so different and it has such an impact in its own way. But you need to be able to deliver it, on time and on cue for where the business is at. And I think that gets lost in a lot of the metrics and things like that. And it's been helpful for us recently. And we're a pretty small business, but I still think it's important for everyone to kind of keep that in mind.
Great. And that is a good bookend to add to this panel discussion. So I want to thank you all for your wonderful thoughts. We're going to continue the conversation in our LinkedIn group. So folks, if you want to join us there, this video will be posted on LinkedIn, and we will also be chatting about this in the CS Executive Brain Trust group. Of course, we want to thank our sponsor, Y Meadows, for putting this together. And we hope to see you all at next month's event. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.